Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Manipulative Power Hungry Aunt Torments My Family for Years. Costs her $300,000. Dealt with my manipulative awful aunt all my life, finally got revenge. Players, myself, male late 30s, sister, 3 year younger, aunt older, sister, to my mother, single mum, adopted, no blood relation to my aunt. Cousins, 3 totals, 1 male, 2 female. I have good relationships with them now, mostly. My estranged father, who had been living several counties over, is pretty much out of the picture by the time my parents got their divorce when I was 9. Due to financial hardship, we were forced to live with my aunt and the nightmare of a household we would soon find ourselves in. My aunt married into Georgia wealth, and you can figure out what that means on your own. She had 3 kids and eventually caught her husband having an affair. It's a huge scandal. She gets the house, the kids and a fat payout from the family attorney. This is important because my aunt didn't do a damn thing in her life to earn her money, her house, her lifestyle or basically anything. She was born poor along with my mum. Under her household, she was drunk with power. Years of therapy have allowed me to recognize that certain people when in a position of power get a perverse pleasure in ordering others to do their bidding. She was the strictest of authoritarians in every possible way you could imagine. Chores had to be completed by an exact specific time. Vacuuming by 3:45 p.m., dishes by 3:55 p.m., laundry days for my mother as kids were Tuesday, Thursday 5:35 p.m. to 7:55 p.m. If it was still running, she would shut the power off for the 2 units. As we grew older, her own kids opted to stay with their father for full-time custody and she had them on weekends. Even they couldn't stand her when she was in charge and in the house. As time passed, she got them less and less, opting for alternating weekends as high school activities took precedence over time with mother. For my sister and I, the large 6-bedroom house was not ours for the taking. My mum had to pay rent as well as rent for 1 bedroom as that was all she could afford on her salary. We had to share a bedroom until my 2nd year of HS. All the while there was 1 spare unused bedroom available at all times. My aunt needed this for guests when they stayed over. Not 1 guest stayed there in the 10 years I was under that roof. Finally, the church we attended told my aunt to give up the spare bedroom so my sister can have her own room, as it was unhealthy for 2 teenagers sharing a room together like that. That infuriated my aunt because someone told her what to do in her own household. My sister and I got the brunt of her wrath. As my mum's salary was tapped out, my sister and I had to do extra chores like mowing the lawn, trimming the shrubs, cleaning the pool, which we could no longer use without her being outside watching us. My aunt's behavior was becoming more and more outrageous and disconnected from society. For example, she had always snapped her fingers when she wanted to get someone's attention, but it was getting far more frequent and she would blow up into a tirade if either my sister and I didn't obey. Her own kids tried repeatedly to tell her that the shit she was doing was wrong, but she wouldn't listen. Eventually they wanted nothing to do with her outside of the home. She was a tyrant there, and repeated intervention to get her to see the folly of her ways would fall on deaf ears. I snapped. All through HS I had no confidence as a person. I was weak-willed and growing ever distant from friends and society. I say this in all truthfulness and fear, that had circumstances continued the way they had been going, I could very well have taken a gun to myself or worse, to others around me. I was that bad off. I had just graduated HS and started my first semester of community college. I'm 2 weeks into my classes attending from home when my aunt drops a bomb on me. You owe me $$ for this month's rent, the same amount for next month's rent as well. It is the 27th after all. You're an adult now. You're out of HS and working now, so you need to pay rent, the duck. I blew a ducking gasket as I yelled back. You can't just suddenly decide to charge me rent just because you feel like it. I need 30 days notice, I have rights. My aunt yelled at me some bullshit excuse that she had discussed this with my mother and it was decided that I needed to pay my own rent now. In some miraculous backbone move, of which I still have no idea how I stood up to her, I yelled right back at her, if I'm an adult, then treat me like and talk to me about rental agreements. I'll start paying you rent in 30 days starting the 1st. I turned my back to her and walked away with my fists balled tight. I was furious with anger, but I walked away. My aunt saw my fists from behind and screamed bloody murder that I was going to attack her. No, I wasn't. She snapped her fingers at me repeatedly on my tail to get my attention, but I didn't turn around. I needed to cool off and clear my head. As I turned the corner, she grabbed my wrist hard, yelling, "I'm not finished talking to you." I threw my still balled up fist forward, keeping with my stride to break her grip as I hadn't stopped my momentum. This caused her grabbing arm to slam hard into the corner of the wall that I had just turned into. She screamed in pain, but I left the house and took off. The aftermath of that incident was that my aunt called the cops on me in an attempt to press charges. She was taken to the hospital and suffered a fractured wrist, and she was put in a cast sling. Don't know, as I never saw it and never inquired further. Her story changed every time she told the cops what happened, while my story was spot on every time. I can still recall that moment, down to the smell in the house, where I was facing, the working and non-working light bulbs, etc. Forever ingrained in me. I was kicked out of the house and I couldn't visit my sister or my mum there at the house again. Fine by me, as I didn't want to see my aunt ever again. I was happy to meet my mother and sister at the local diner or outlet. We could be ourselves there and not hostages in our own home. Years later, my mum wised up and got out of that abusive relationship with her sister and moved out on her own. She got a temporary nice place, invested wisely, and with the help from the church, got help getting a place of her own. In 2009, after the housing crisis, she bought her own place that she could never have afforded on her own prior to the market crash. But some good came out of it. She wept knowing my sister and her family and myself can come visit any time and stay. Over the years, I've been able to forgive my aunt. Not forget, forgive. I've let go a lot of my anger and hatred toward her that she put me through. When she has no leverage or control over us, she's a somewhat decent person for being a total idiot of a person. My cousins have calmed down, heard my side of what happened those years ago, and know what kind of person I am compared to what kind of person their mother is. They chose to believe me and know I didn't hit her or strike her or beat her across the face like she continues to claim. The revenge, while I have been able to forgive my aunt for what she has done to me, I cannot forgive her for what she did to my mother. Kept her in financial hardship for a decade while she sat on a bank account full of cash and assets. Or what she did to my sister. Forced her to pay for damages because the water heater burst while my aunt and mother were away one weekend, leaving my sister at home. She didn't discover the flooded rooms for hours. My aunt's reasoning: it was her responsibility to watch the house. Not the responsibility of the homeowner to maintain, replace the water heater before it goes. Let's leave that upfront $5,000 financial burden before the flood insurance kicks in on a 16-year-old girl. I've had little to no contact with my aunt since I was kicked out of the house nearly 2 decades ago. But I do keep in constant contact with my cousins. While I'm not going to divulge what I do for a living, I can say that I work with and for the government. I've worked my butt off getting to where I'm at today. I'm known for being truthful, wise, and giving good advice when asked. Because of this, I often talk financially with my cousins. All of whom are money smart and are doing well for themselves. They often then relay this information to their scheming mother, who has no mind for business and investments. All that money she got from her house sale, her divorce settlement, and her previous investments is pretty much gone. I spent years planning on the perfect trap, and it took a long time to prepare everything to make sure everything appeared right. I don't pretend to know the law, but I do know the regulations and laws pertaining to insider information. This is not that. 100% certain of it, and if I ever go to court, I know my lawyer has a solid case in my defense. But is this a gray area? Most definitely. I let slip to my cousins about some future real estate plans near my aunt's new area of living. It may be worth a lot more because of future development taking place in the area. All of that was true and backed up by what was in the newspaper and new construction signs that newly appeared on Google Maps at the time. The rest was fabricated by myself, backed up by actual information I looked up on real estate websites and on projects I was working on through my work. The telephone game takes place, and a few weeks later, I presume, my aunt starts making phone calls to real estate agents trying to buy lots of land in the undeveloped area of her new house. Over the course of a few months to a half a year, she spends $300,000 of her last remaining savings on land, hoping it will pay out when the area around it gets developed in the upcoming years. Only, HUD, government, city doesn't have any plans to develop in those immediate areas. In fact, analysis showed that building in those areas was poor planning and would cost the taxpayers 2 to 3 times as much as the land was not environmentally sound. It was best to build 6 miles away. This post was long overdue because it's been over 2 years since my aunt purchased land that is basically worthless. See, she won't sell the land unless she gets at least the same price she paid for it because she's the owner of that land. Can't tell her what to do on her own land. Sweet karma strikes in a way I couldn't possibly have foreseen. My cousin informed me that the value of the land has decreased significantly because it's not environmentally sound to build anything commercial there. But it's zoned for commercial use. Currently 3 of the 4 blocks of land she purchased are just weed farms next to eyesore abandoned buildings or industrial complexes. Nobody can build on it and nor does anyone want to buy it. Sucks to be her. Best part is, my cousins have absolutely no idea that I set them up for their mother to take the fall. These environmental results are relatively new and the perfect cover to say why the project changed locations 6 miles away. The next one is titled, He Was Left with Rough Finances. Husband and wife married when they were in their late teens. He is smart and a looker, she is brilliant. They moved from London to Hong Kong due to his job, but soon she finds one that is satisfying. The workload is heavy and both travel constantly. But they are both soon on $500,000 plus packages. He starts playing around and the number of girlfriends mount. I was always surprised that he could not cut anyone off. She notes this and he is reformed several times. After 10 or 12 years he meets and falls hard for another professional. She is smart and a looker but not brilliant. She is not willing to be a mere mistress. The wife finds out and meets with his girlfriend. They agree that they will give him a choice, wife or girlfriend. He goes to Thailand and into the arms of yet another lady for consolation. I know because I had to hide behind a pillar so I did not bump into them to decide. He informs his wife through his secretary he wants a divorce. She, who has been in charge of the family finances, buys a massive house in London using all their savings plus a mortgage. She packs up the home in Hong Kong and ships everything, and I mean everything, to London. This includes his much prized carpet collection. She takes the children out of boarding school in the UK and re-registers them in a school close to the new home. On the day that she leaves, just 1 week after that call, yes, all that in 1 week, she cancels all the credit cards, rendering his cards useless as they were on joint account, and writes to the Hong Kong tax authorities telling them that she is leaving. This triggers a tax bill for all unpaid taxes, 3 years. In those days, the husband is responsible for his wife's taxable income. He returns to an empty house, empty bank account. He had to borrow money from me, sigh, no usable credit card and a massive tax bill. When he sued to try to get his carpet collect and some money back, he discovered that all he could get was an interest in the mansion of a house in London. This is because it was the family home and thus could not be sold. As for the carpet collection, it had been auctioned off to pay down the mortgage. 24 years have passed. To be fair to him, he is still married to the girlfriend. He has stopped playing around or become very much more discreet. He has still not gotten any money as she still lives in the home with a new husband. Revenge is best served cold? The next one is titled, She Used a Psychological Trick to Guilt Trip Him. Sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. A friend of mine told me this story years ago. This couple is married, the lady has a corporate job and is always traveling. The husband is nice and supportive of his wife but has a young mistress on the side he sees when wifey is away. Wifey suspects nothing. One day, she has to travel outside the country to sort out a crisis. She's expected back on a Monday. The husband uses this opportunity to bring his mistress home. Unfortunately for both of them, wifey manages to sort out the crisis early and gets back home a day earlier, on a Sunday. She walks into the house to find a strange woman wearing her bathrobe and washing the dishes. Hubby is on the couch watching the TV with a towel wrapped around his waist. Doesn't take a genius to figure out what's been happening. She greets her husband warmly, even hugs him, greets the mistress warmly and rebukes her husband for not introducing them. Hubby is tongue-tied in shock. She then goes to the bedroom, unpacks her suitcase and comes back to the lounge to find the mistress has quickly dressed up and disappeared. Hubby is waiting for the worst but wifey behaves like nothing has happened. She chats merrily about her trip, asks him how his week has been, even makes dinner. After dinner, they go to bed like nothing has happened. This continues for 2 straight days. Wife behaves like nothing happened, isn't moody or angry, is in fact very chirpy and cheerful. On the third day, the husband broke down and confessed to everything. The torture of silence was too much to bear. He couldn't even sleep because he thought she was plotting some nefarious scheme against him. He confesses to everything and promises never to do it again, and he never does. Wife eventually forgives him and they live happily ever after. Sometimes psychological warfare really does work. The next one is titled, "She Sold His Clothes to a Consignment Store." This incident occurred back in the mid-70s. I was friendly with a couple who tended to drink heavily and have major drunken arguments. Usually, things would blow over when they both had sobered up, but on this one occasion, Jane was not ready to make nice. She kicked her boyfriend out of the apartment and dared him to come back. As a final parting shot, she took every single dress shirt he owned, and they were expensively tailored clothes, and all his jeans and slacks to the local consignment store and donated them. When he went back to the apartment for his things, she told him what she had done. He immediately went to the consignment store and repurchased his clothes, or at least the portion that had not already been sold. I had thought that a pretty low blow, but now I see it as almost comical and somewhat harmless, except for the financial hit. And it wasn't the end of their relationship. Somehow they got beyond this incident and continued drinking and fighting for another year or two before they finally went their separate ways. The last one is titled, "He Made Her Think Her Car Got Stolen." Caught in the act of cheating. It wasn't me or my spouse cheating. It was me helping my neighbor Vin get revenge on his cheating wife Kat. Kat had told Vin that she was going to the gym, then out for coffee with her gym friends. Vin had suspicions she was cheating, so he waited a while after she left, then he drove to the gym to see if she was there. Sure enough, her car wasn't there. He knew where to find her. She would be at Fred's house. Fred was a friend of a friend. Sure enough, her car is at Fred's house. Vin was heartbroken and upset. He leaves his car, gets in mine, and we drive to Fred's. He gets out of my car, and takes Kat's car. Oh my god. I was dying. He drove home. He parked her car in the driveway and waited for the call. That was amazing revenge, thinking on his part. 4 hours later, Kat calls him crying that her car was stolen from the gym parking lot. He very calmly replies, "That's strange. I'm looking out the window, and your car is in the driveway. And that is a mighty long workout. Shouldn't you be having coffee with your friends now?" He hung up. Busted. Fred dropped her at the corner and she cried for forgiveness. Vin told her to get out. She left for about a couple weeks and begged him to take her back. He did. They moved out of state and I lost touch. Thanks for listening.